Sir, I'm Samiksha Jain, 18-year-old aspiring journalist. So, I wanted to ask that the very first thing you said in the session was that we are provided a filtered history. We are not taught this much. We are getting to know this while stepping out of the real world, which is why the young minds of India, are not getting a true history. When can we expect young minds of India will truly get to know the real history? Like, it's 80 years since independence. What's your take on this?
So one of the sad things about post-independence history is that after independence, it was not the people who fought for Indian independence who became the intellectual class, particularly the historians, but those who had collaborated with the British. So you look at all the famous historians that are there in the last few decades, and you look at their family histories, you will be surprised to see almost all of them came from a background where they were collaborators of the British. So for them, it was very important to perpetuate the idea that there was no India before independence, because otherwise it would mean that they were all traitors. So what they did instead, therefore, it was very important for them to perpetuate the idea that there was no India, therefore there was no history. So they actually, interestingly, after independence, we perpetuated colonial narratives even more aggressively under Marxist and other garbs. But the real reason for it is that the intellectual class wanted to hide its own history. So it's only in relatively recent times that a small group of people, including myself, have begun to question this. And of course, this questioning cannot come from the usual academic departments, because they are completely controlled by this Marxist cabal. So it came from people from outside it, like myself. I am an economist, that's my main profession. But because I am not controlled by that academic stranglehold, I am able to say things. Now, of course, the first thing will be say, okay, what's your proof? What is the evidence? So I said, okay, I will make the evidence and show it to you. So I went and researched this ship. Then I built the ship. Then I sailed the ship. And I did it myself. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैंने किसी और को बोला आप चला के दिखाइए. मैंने स्वयं ये वॉयज किया जिससे आप डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन दे सकूं कि ये किया जा सकता है. और अब अगर कोई इतिहासकार बोलेगा कि ये नहीं हो सकता है, तो मैं बोलूँगा मैंने स्वयं करके दिखाया है. कैसे नहीं हो सकता है? उस जहाज में आपने देखा होगा कोई आधुनिक चीज़ का इस्तेमाल ही नहीं किया, सिर्फ कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी का किया, क्योंकि आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी के बिना मेरा मुझे I would have to fear other ships. You see, my biggest problem was not weather, but oil tankers. So those oil tankers have to know that I have no way of changing direction, and a large oil tanker also cannot change direction very easily. So it is very important that they know I am there. So I have to have some modern navigation and transponders to show my location. Other than that, there was nothing modern on the ship.
So you think, sir, that as India is the fastest growing economy in the world at date, the major economies, so you think that history and economics go hand in hand, shaping a country's future?
Absolutely. Because if you do not know where you came from, you will never figure out where you are going. And by the way, we are not the only people with this. Go back and look at the way Chinese have rediscovered their history. So, for example, there is an Admiral Zheng He who in the 15th century, he sailed ships all over the Pacific, the Indian Ocean and many other places. Now, Admiral Zheng He was almost forgotten, but he has been almost brought back in recent history. Similarly, all these ancient Chinese inventions that you now hear about, gunpowder was a Chinese invention, printing was a Chinese invention. Now it is only relatively recent times that this is now being publicized. Why? Because the Chinese have themselves begun to be proud of their history and beginning to write it. Till then, when you had Europeans writing Chinese history, it looked very, very different. It was all about Chinese being opium eaters. So the same thing was done to us. Our problem is that we have not gone out there and begun to tell our story. And so this INSV Condena is an effort. There are other efforts as well to retell our story. As I keep telling people, until the lions have their own storytellers, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sanyal sir. We are deeply grateful to you for sharing your insightful perspective on INSV Kondinya. Your narration beautifully connected India's ancient maritime heritage with contemporary strategic thought, making history feel both alive and relevant.